Please be seated. When I hear the story of Jesus walking on the water, I also hear a Violent Femmes song, which is aptly called Jesus Walking on the Water. And if you're thinking, the Violent Femmes is a weird name for a Christian band, that's because they're not a Christian band. They're like a folk punk band, but they have this one song about Jesus walking on the water. I have to say, the first time I heard it, I thought, is this a joke? But I don't think it is. I actually think that oftentimes people who don't know a lot of stories about Jesus know this story, right? They know the story of Jesus walking on the water. I once heard an atheist speaking, and he was like, well, it's not like I believe a giant Jesus is going to come walking out of the ocean. And I thought, does anyone believe that? But then I was like, well, maybe he heard this story. Or maybe he heard the Violent Femmes song about it. I don't know. And got the idea that that's what this was about, that that's what Jesus was about. But I don't think that this story is necessarily the best indicator of who Jesus is. I'm not saying it isn't an indicator of who he is, but to me it just feels like kind of a non sequitur, right? It's like if you just opened the Gospels and read a story, you're going to find one probably where Jesus is teaching people about things and using the illustrations from our everyday lives, right? You're going to find stories where Jesus is healing people, right? All kinds of people in all kinds of ways. You're going to find even some stories of miracles. And of course, walking on water sounds like a pretty good miracle, right? But most of the miracles of Jesus, they feel like I can see the point of them, right? Like people are hungry, right? We read that one last week, so Jesus makes food. People are running out of wine at the party, so Jesus makes wine, right? I get why that's happening. What exactly was he trying to get to with this? What was the point here, besides showing that he could do a really cool trick? Was it just another chance to make us feel bad because we are fearful people? I mean, I get it. Fear isn't always a great thing, but it is kind of a fundamental part of who we are. I mean, every time an angel shows up for somebody in the Bible, they lead with, do not be afraid. Now, this could be because angels are just like terrifying creatures. I haven't really seen one face to face myself, so who knows? But I also think it's because, on the whole, we're fearful, fearfully and wonderfully made. And fear can get out of hand, right? It can make us do things that we might not otherwise have done. Like, for example, sell our brother into slavery. Okay, so if you're just joining us, let me just tell you, Joseph is the embodiment of the worst little brother ever, right? I mean, following you around all the time, not really helping, tattling to you about you to your parents. And to make it worse, Joseph really is the favorite, you know? People are like, oh, my dad likes my brother better than me. Well, Joseph's brothers were right, okay? He made him a special coat. He was the first child of his favorite wife. He was not expected to do any of these chores that the older brothers were having to do. So he was this treasured child who was tattling on his older brothers, and then he has a dream, right? A dream where 11 inferior elements are bowing down to one larger element. And he thinks, you know what I should do? I should tell my 11 brothers about this dream I had. Oh my goodness. Honestly, I'm sure Freud and Jung and whatever dream app you have on your phone would have a field day with the dreams he had, but turns out so did his brothers, right? Because they thought he was trying to tell them that he thought he was better than them. And since the way he acted in his life also sort of conveyed that message, they weren't very happy with him. But I'm not sure that justifies selling him into slavery. Does anything justify selling anyone into slavery? I mean, come on. I've always thought it's ironic that we have insanity as a defense against murder, because in fact, doesn't everyone who's committing an act like that, aren't they insane in that moment? I mean, I can't speak from experience, and I'm not trying to justify that kind of behavior. But I think the worst choices we make in our lives, we often do them without logic, right? We do them because of what we're feeling in the moment, because of what we want, what we think we need. Joseph was annoying. His brothers thought he was trying to overthrow them. They didn't like him. They saw an opportunity to get rid of him, and so they did. The end. They weren't thinking about the bigger picture. If you were paying attention to the psalm, you know that blessedly God was thinking of the bigger picture, so things come back around, but we got to wait till next week to go through that whole story. But that's how we act when we are afraid, when we are full of emotion. We just do what feels right in that moment without thinking about the way it might have implications down the line. Like Peter. My favorite fool is back. We better hope Peter doesn't actually have the keys to heaven, because I might get in trouble with him, all the things I say about him in my sermons. But I love Peter. You have to understand that. I'm not making fun of him. I resonate with him, right? He behaves the way that I would behave sometimes, the way that many of us behave sometimes. He wants to be all in. He wants to be a part of it. He wants to build a shrine so we can remember this moment. Everything's huge to him. So it's no surprise that when he sees Jesus walking on the water, he's like, I got to be a part of this. How do I get there? I don't know. That's pretty much how it went, right? And the thing is, after Jesus reaches out, pulls him out, he says, you have little faith. Why did you doubt? Well, he was standing on the water, which is not a thing that humans can do. I kind of feel like this was a moment when you should be afraid, right? When it makes sense to be fearful. When there are waves crashing around you and you're, I don't know, thousands of feet below the surface of the water, of the ocean. No, the bottom of the ocean. It's not going to end well. I don't blame him for being afraid. But I wonder, is that what Jesus was upset about? Before he comes, Peter says, Lord, if it is you, call me to you. If it is you. You're asking for proof, Peter. This never ends well. Jesus has one word in response to Peter. He says, come. But I feel like there was an eye roll in there. Don't you think? They just didn't write that part down, right? Jesus was like, oh man, why can you not leave well enough alone? I'm literally coming to you right now, right? I get that you're scared. I get that you don't know what's going on. I get that you're not sure what's coming next. But I am right here. You can see me, and I will be with you in just a second. Could you just hold on? But Peter couldn't, right? He couldn't trust that it was Jesus, that Jesus was there, that Jesus was coming, that Jesus was with him. In Paul's letter to the Roman, it seems like we're being chastised, this time not for being afraid, but for not being very good evangelists. And you know I want you to be good evangelists, so I don't think, though, that that's quite what Paul was trying to say. He says, you don't have to look for God, right? You don't have to go to heaven. You don't have to go to hell. You don't have to. God is with you. The word is very near you. And you just have to believe that. But you also have to show that with your life and with your words. Because God is near everybody, right? God's love is for everyone. But how are they going to know that if we don't live like that's true? If we don't tell them in words or in actions. I'll give you actions. You don't have to go door to door. But show the love of God, the faith that you have that God is present and real in our lives in the way that you live. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. Like I told the kids, right? Fear is a natural human impulse. Where things get messed up is how we decide to act on it, right? When we act in ways that are hurtful to ourselves or others in response to fear, we've lost track of what we were supposed to be doing. And when we don't act based in places of faith, then things get off track. Faith doesn't mean that you're never afraid. It just means that when you are afraid, you can have faith that God is with you in it. It turns out that the Violent Femmes lead singer was raised in a devout Christian household, and that's why he wrote that song. At least according to the internet, and we know the internet's never wrong. But it's an interesting song. You can go home and listen to it on Spotify or whatever. It talks not just about the story of walking on the water, but also the story of Jesus' resurrection, which I think we might agree would be a good story for people who don't know any stories about Jesus to know. Maybe better than the walking on the water one. But he talks too about the times when he feels like Jesus pulled him from the depth, right? And his question at the heart of the song is this true, right? Is this story true? Is the story of the resurrection true? Is this real? And if it is, how then should I be living? If we believe that Jesus walks on water, that Jesus rose from the dead, that Jesus' love is present for all people, how does that inform the way we live in this world? How do we spread that message in our words and in our actions? I don't think Jesus walked on water because he was trying to do a cool trick. I don't think anything he did was about who he was. I think it was about who God is. It was about him showing us who God is. He told all these stories about things in our lives so that we would know that God is actively in our lives, right? The everyday, ordinary parts of it. He healed people so that we could know that God can transform people's lives, can make wholeness where it feels like there's brokenness. And he performed miracles so we would understand the grace and abundance of our loving God. Jesus came so we would have life and have it abundantly, so that we would know the love of God in a real and concrete way, so that we could always remember that God is with us. That's his name, right? Emmanuel, God is with us. If God is with us, we might still be afraid, but we have to remember that God is present to us, and to use our faith to show the love of God to ourselves when we're afraid, and to the world when they need it.